Well, if the classic stuffing is the best thing on the planet, why make something different? I am making 2 pans of stuffing. They're perfect. It's the best thing on the table. It's the thing that everybody wants seconds of and the thing you want to eat the next day. So stuffing is one of those things that I am very particular about. I want my stuffing to be like classic stuffing flavors. A lot of celery, tons of garlic and onions, some white wine, some herbs, stock, eggs, and just a ridiculous amount of butter. This is a campagna loaf, which is a sourdough crusty bread. This particular one is made with a bit of whole grain flour. I would not do like anything super, super whole grain. Like if you have like a 100% rye or like a buckwheat or something with like lots of seeds and grains in it, I wouldn't. It is gonna definitely be the predominant flavor of the stuffing. Ciabatta is great, miche, campagna loaf, sourdough boule, any sort of good crusty sourdough bread. I leave the crust on. To me, like the craggly bits of the bread are where you get the best crispy parts and the maximum absorption for all of the egg and stock, vegetables that we're gonna cook down, everything that goes into the stuffing that makes it stuffing. I'm gonna cut this in half because I need an entry point into this loaf. I go a little bigger than bite size. I don't like it when bread is too small because it then just like disappears into the stuffing. Think of it as like delicious croutons soaked in like turkey stock and butter and celery and onion. Basically, if it's too big, you will have a hard time getting all of the bits to be properly absorbed, and it will also be like not as pleasant to eat. And if it's too small, then it becomes like a bowl of mush. So, you know, I don't want to freak anyone out, but don't mess this part up. just kidding. If you have a partner or a child that is willing and able and interested in helping you prep, this is a great task for them. Anyone can do this, even David. I'm just kidding. David's a great cook, actually. You're a great cook.
Thanks, buddy.
As you can tell, it took a lot of brute strength, determination, focus, but when all was said and done, we ended up with 2 gorgeously, perfectly filled sheet pans of torn bread that's gonna dry out overnight, and we are gonna make stuffing with it in the morning. Before we go to sleep, I'm gonna give it a toss just to get like any parts that haven't gotten like in contact with the air to fully dry out the bread. By drying this out overnight, we're sort of preserving its like puffed upness, the craggly bits, the edges. If we just kind of went straight into stuffing, we'd be like, oh, that's kind of sad. It just tastes like wet bread. And we don't want wet bread. We want like custardy croutons. Wet bread, custardy crouton. You know what I mean? You see the difference? Can I see the paper?
Yeah.
Lines. This episode of Home Movies is brought to you by State Farm. I hope those people have car insurance. State Farm offers some surprisingly great rates on car insurance, and that's why today I'm gonna offer you some surprisingly fantastic tips on how to host Thanksgiving. Ask people to bring ice, because unless you have even if you have an ice maker, I feel like you're gonna run out of ice. And that is something that when you need, nothing else can replace it. Invest in a few folding chairs, because I know that I only have 6 seats at this table, but having these folding chairs that slide to the back of my credenza, you can store in a closet, are so, so helpful for additional seats. A thing that you should be also having on hand are plenty of disposable containers. And these can be like plastic Tupperwares or like to-go style containers. You can order them on the internet from restaurant supply stores, but you wanna get the food out of your fridge. You want some leftovers, but you don't want all the leftovers. And sending people home with like a little pint of mashed potatoes is such a beautiful gift. So hopefully these tips provide a little coverage for you on the big day, just like State Farm provides coverage for you every day. Like a good neighbor that you're obviously gonna invite to your Thanksgiving, State Farm is there. Not literally your Thanksgiving, but you know, figuratively. Go to statefarm.com for a quote today. Welcome back. It is day 2. You can like tell by the way it sounds, that's hard. That's exactly where we want it to be. I'm very excited. The idea that there's like stuffing scarcity horrifies me. It is my greatest joy to put out 1 pan of stuffing and then have it disappear and people be like, and then I'll be like, there's more, and they're like, yay! And then not only do they get to have more stuffing tonight, but they get to take some home. And then the next day, people wake up, they're probably hungover, they eat a little stuffing. Chef's kiss.
And now, a public service announcement from Alison Ronan.
You can bake stuffing in anything you want. If you have a 9x13 Pyrex glass baking dish, that's great. Classic stuffing vehicle. If you had a cast iron, baking stuffing in a cast iron, absolutely great idea. Do you have a pie plate? because you could bake stuffing in this too. I've even made stuffing in a loaf pan, and that is as close as you'll ever get to a kitchen tour. For this, I'm gonna get out a large skillet. I have more skillets than any one person should have. Have you even ever seen such a gorgissimo bunch of celery? So if there's an opportunity to use celery, I'm going to take that opportunity and I'm going to exploit it. I am going to use so much celery, it will be unmistakably in whatever it is that I'm using. It's not, to me, like a flavor that should be quiet. It should be loud. If you don't like celery, you can use fennel. You can leave it out entirely, maybe increase the onion, maybe add a leek. But just trust me on this. I think the flavor of stuffing, if you like it, chances are it's because you like celery, even if you think you don't like celery, which I've heard a lot this year, and I'm not mad, but I am disappointed. This is very thin celery. It's from the farmer's market. It's really nice. It has a lot of leaves on it. The tender, sort of more neon green leaves towards the heart. They're a lot easier to eat raw, so I'm gonna save those for our garnish. I'm gonna kind of just chop up the whole thing. This is like a 1/4 inch. It's gonna sweat down, and obviously, you know, we have bigger pieces here, smaller pieces here, because the celery's shape tends to taper off. I wouldn't go through the trouble of like slicing your rib in half unless your celery is quite large. Celery is low-key one of those things that, like, if you can get at a farmer's market, I would. The flavor tends to be a lot more concentrated. It is a huge, huge, huge difference. Wow, a perfect 4 cups.
Oh my God, is today your day?
It's my day! Everything's coming out Roman. You could dice this onion. I'm gonna slice it because I like pieces of onion, generally speaking, but that is a personal preference. This is sort of the most time-consuming dish that requires the most knife work, but that's why it's like, if you're gonna make 1 pan of stuffing, you truly may as well just make 2. All right, I'm gonna put the onions and the garlic together because they can go together. I'm separating the onions and the celery because I'm gonna cook these in 2 batches. This is also the kind of thing, if you're like, can I use a garlic press for this? Use a garlic press, see if I care. I like to slice my garlic because I like to see the pieces, I like to eat the pieces. They bring me joy. Please take it upon yourself to cut the garlic however you like. For anybody wanting to know how to do this dairy-free, you can definitely use olive oil instead of butter. I've had some people tell me that they really love using vegan butter, but I would use one of those 2 swaps. I just like the flavor of butter in this. It makes it a lot richer. So I'm going to melt 1 stick of butter, and then to that, I'm going to add a 1/2 cup of olive oil. I'm just gonna use this same measuring cup for everything here. And I just seasoned it with salt and pepper. And I'm gonna saute it until it's like nice and tender, softened. I'm not looking for any color or caramelization or browning. It's just to get everything like soft and evaporate some of the liquid inside of it. And so this will take like, 8 to 10 minutes-ish. I'm gonna go get some thyme and oregano from the garden. Welcome to my humble garden. I have thyme, and what was sold to me as oregano and marjoram, it's the same plant. They're both oregano. And some parsley, which I don't know if will ever get big enough for me to use, but the oregano is absolutely thriving. So I'm gonna clip some of that. You can use any sort of mixture of marjoram, oregano, thyme. I think that those are the best fragrant herbs. If you don't have access to fresh of those, I think using something like dried oregano is a good idea, but you'll wanna use about 1/2 of it because those dried herbs are much more concentrated in flavor. Truly nothing compares to a fresh herb. It's about 2 tablespoons-ish per batch. When I cook with ingredients, I generally cook with them because I want to see and taste them. I'm not trying to like disappear or anything. There's a reason you've never seen me use a blender on this show. I don't like homogeny. So see how everything is very soft and tender, but not mushy. I'm using just like a regular ass Sauvignon Blanc, very cookable. You could definitely drink it if you wanted to, but it's not like my nicest bottle of wine. I'm gonna go a cup. Most of it's gonna evaporate, don't worry. So we're gonna let this reduce almost all the way. Oh, this needs a little salt. See how thick and almost soupy it is? There's some liquid left, but it's definitely reduced by about 1/2. And you can always taste it. And if you're like, oh, that still tastes like wine, then keep cooking it. It should just be like faintly sweet, a little bit acidic, and saucy. So I'm gonna kill the heat because that's ready for us. The last thing we're gonna need to do is make like the liquid part or the binding agent of the stuffing. You can make stuffing without eggs, but to me the eggs really make the whole thing cohesive rather than just like, again, soaked seasoned pieces of bread. The egg provides a real custardy moment. I'm gonna take that turkey stock from yesterday. We'll need about 2.5 cups. I budget for 3 just because sometimes I do find myself adding more, like especially for a reheat. If you need it, I feel like you can tell very easily if your stuffing is dry or not. So having a little bit of extra stock on hand for that is useful. All right, so this is just 2.5 cups. A lot of people will tell you that you have to heat it up before you add your eggs, but I don't feel like you have to. I've never done that, and I don't think it's necessary. So 3 eggs, 2.5 cups of stock, and I'm just whisking it until it's very well blended. We're gonna add our herbs, our bread, and this is gonna sit for a minute, and I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna toss it repeatedly to make sure that all the bread is gonna get evenly soaked. You'll know when the liquid is absorbed and when it's ready to add the vegetables when you toss it and you see no more liquid at the bottom of the bowl because it's been absorbed by your bread. All right, so I'm gonna add the celery, the onion, the butter, the olive oil, the wine into this mixture. This is providing like a bulk of your flavor, but also a lot of moisture. And I'm just gonna season it with one more little salt and pepper round. And there are raw eggs in here, so I can't legally advise you sampling this, but occasionally I might. So this is gonna go into our baking dish. I like to sort of like arrange the top. It's almost like when you're decorating a pie. And see how it's like just coming up over the baking dish? That's exactly what we want. And you never, ever, ever wanna pack this in here. Like this should be as like light and delicate as possible. To me, this looks really beautiful and like, I cannot wait to eat this. And again, we're not pressing down, so be gentle. Like, kind of leave some room between the stuffing and the foil. You wanna like tent it slightly. And then just kind of pinch the edges. And this is gonna go in a 375 oven for about 40 minutes. The key to really good stuffing is like a really moist interior and a really crispy, crunchy exterior. So by baking it for the first time with the foil on, we're trapping the moisture in, we're keeping that steam inside. And then when we take it off, it'll be in there for a brief time at a higher temperature to crisp it. Our stuffing is coming out of the oven. It's been in for about 45 minutes. You can bake stuffing in any dish, like I said, but I really enjoy doing it in a glass pan. As evidence here, you can see what's going on in the baking dish. So you can tell when I say bake it until the sides and the crust are golden brown. If you're baking it in an opaque dish, it's really tough to tell when that's happening. Am I gonna try it right now? Absolutely. It's so good. This is my favorite food of all time. We're gonna keep our oven on at 425 to re-crisp our stuffing, of which I have 3 pans of. I'm just gonna do one stuffing for now. This is coming off. It always looks kind of like shit. I'm not gonna lie. It doesn't look great when you take it off. A drizzle of olive oil if you wanted. So this is the time where we're crisping the bread. Just coming in hot, 425. The stuffing is crispy and crunchy and like insanely delicious looking. I'm adding celery leaves. And there you have it, what I think is the perfect classic stuffing recipe. Learn it, love it, eat it, make it multiple times a year if you like.